Hello, my name is Katie Van Zee, and this is my American Culture reaction video. The first part of this assignment is to describe our reaction to the Narasima article. Honestly, upon first reading this article, I found it quite disturbing in a sense where a lot of it was just things that here in the US we would have found culturally very unusual, especially when it came to the use of shrines in every single household, as well as the use of charms and magical potions. When the word magical potions and charms are used, a lot of people in the US, I would say at least the majority, would giggle or have a lot of disbelief in that idea, simply because they are often used in movies such as Harry Potter. It really made me question how well these charms and magical potions actually worked. It was very hard to believe that these would have any sort of effect on the human using them. Their faith in the medicine man, as well as their faith in these potions and magical charms, their faith in the medicine man also made me reconsider, their ability and just how strong they believe. Their overly positive and strong belief that these would work. Upon really realizing that the Narasima culture was really the American culture, it kind of shocked me and kind of shook me, especially the connection between the magical charms and potions really just being medicine. It made me seem as if, wow, if these magical potions are really medicine, how well do they actually work? And if this medicine man is really just being a doctor, how much does he really know? It was really fascinating to look at the connection, and it made me realize just how strange our culture may seem to someone from the outside, which is what the Narasima article was written from. Some pattern that may seem unusual for someone from a different culture is the idea of having a minimum drinking age of 21, especially from drinking, waiting so long to drink and then not having it with meals. So when I went to Spain a couple years ago, it was very common to have a glass of wine with your drink. It was on every menu, where a lot of times it would be like, okay, this meal tastes good with this wine, which I don't believe is very commonly instructed or learnt here in the US. It's not very normal to perceive alcohol as an everyday drink, whereas, for us it's water or pop or soda, especially with ice. In other countries, they don't use a lot of ice in their drinks. 64% of the world has a legal drinking age of 18, whereas the US, like I said, is 21. The youngest drinking age is 15, which is completely mind-boggling for me, because here in the US, that would be like a freshman in a high school sitting down and requesting a glass of wine with their meal. 7 countries don't even have a minimum drinking age, so I can imagine that for them, the idea of not being able to drink up until a certain age is extremely unusual and kind of strange to comprehend. This is especially interesting considering how in the Bible they drink, and how even Jesus drank. So it kind of makes you question why it's so controversial in the US to have people be drinking, and why in the US drinking is perceived as such a large party drink, and why it's perceived as so bad in the US, and why our culture, in our point of view, it's perceived as so unrealistic and unresponsible, especially for the younger generation, where drinking connects to partying and the idea of being drunk instead of the idea of drinking moderately. Over the course of history, drinking has changed largely. We did go through a prohibition era here in the US, where from 1920 to 1933, the legal prevention of the manufacture, sale, and transportation of alcohol was completely illegal. No one could do it. due to these restrictions and due to it being illegal, it rose to bootlegging, which is the illegal production and sale of liquor, as well as the spark of speakeasies being sprouted all over. And speakeasies are the illegal, secretive drinking establishments, so areas where people could sneak in and drink, which is really interesting because almost in a sense, like preventing drinking didn't prevent it in a sense. It just made citizens and people sneak around a lot more and get better at sneaking around more. This also caused an increase in organized crime and gangs and just overall a lot of crimes. After the Prohibition, nearly all states restricted their youth access to alcohol if they were under the age of 21. However, between 1970 and 1975, 29 states lowered their minimum legal drinking age, or their MLDA, to 18, 20, or 18, 19, or 20. 16 states increased the minimum legal drinking age to 21 between 1976 and 1983, and by 1988 it was moved up to 21 for all states. I do believe that moving the legal drinking age up to 21 was beneficial in many ways. A review by the U.S. General Accounting Office conducted in 1988, so right after it was moved to 21 for all states. They found that raising the MLDA reduced youth drinking and driving, as well as many alcohol-related traffic accidents among the youth. However, during the time of different states, so between 1970 and 1983, well, up to 1987, I suppose, when many different states had many different legal MLDAs, minimum legal drinking ages, youth below the legal drinking age would drive to an adjoining state with a lower MLDA. So they would drive to a state where they could legally drink, and then they would crash on their way home. So I would say that that was very detrimental. However, once it was properly to 21 in 1988, when youth turned 21, they had their sense of drinking to make up for lost time. So they drank a lot more substance to make up for that lost time beforehand. According to the National Library of Medicine, alcohol use among youth is related to numerous problems, including traffic crashes, as I said previously, drownings, vandalism, assaults, homicides, suicides, teenage pregnancies, as well as sexually transmitted diseases. So I do think that changing that drinking age to 21 was beneficial in many ways. However, it was also detrimental because, in a sense, there's the idea that the more that you restrict, the more they're going to want to try it. The more they're going to try and push back and do it. So, yes, and then as we could see during the Prohibition, that restricting alcohol didn't actually prohibit people from using it. They just did a better job of sneaking around while doing so. So, thank you so much. And there you go.